You know what would make this book better? If the Haunted Mansion was the one Kristy lived in. I'd rather see that than Random Mansion no one's ever heard of before.
Argofunk Book Review, Argofunk Book Review.
This book was written by Ellen Miles. Kristy and Bart's all-star team is playing a game in Redfield, which is 30 miles away. Charlie takes everyone there in his van. Since when does Charlie have a van? Let alone a van that holds 12 people. Continuity! To make things weirder, the kids are all traveling separately from their parents. The parents are at the game, they just don't take their kids to and from the game. That makes no sense. Why go out of your way to have Kristy take your kid to the game if you're going to the game too? Now you're taking 2 trips to Kristy's house for no reason. I'm overthinking the situation. It's just an excuse for Kristy to be stranded with the kids. We know this because on the drive home, they run into a thunderstorm.
Everybody thinks I'm fearless, but the truth is that I never feel totally at ease during a thunderstorm. I'm always reading these articles about people being struck by lightning and having their zippers welded shut and stuff. The idea just scares living daylights out of me.
Kristy isn't afraid of lightning because it might kill her. She's afraid because it might get her pants zipper stuck. Kristy is weird. The storm is so bad they have to stop at the first house they see. It's an abandoned mansion, and the bridge just washed out, which means they have to stay overnight. Nobody lives here besides a creepy old caretaker. He doesn't have a phone and doesn't seem to trust phones anyway, those newfangled technology thingamabobbers. Phones have existed for your entire life, Mr. Caretaker. He gives them food and blankets and lets them inside the house. They explore the mansion, and they admire all the old fancy things. There's a portrait labeled Owen Sawyer. Jackie shrieks and says, "This is the haunted Sawyer Mansion!" It's famous for having all sorts of hauntings, like the lights turning on and off, smoke coming from the chimney, and a ghost woman walking around. Don't get too excited, though. There are absolutely no hauntings in this book. Why would there be hauntings in a book with Haunted Mansion in the title? Back at home, people get worried about Kristy and the missing kids. Watson calls Marianne, and Bart's father calls Claudia for some reason. How did he get her phone number? Why does he think she knows more about his son than he does? Marianne worries during her babysitting job. Claudia has a hard time convincing Jamie Newton that things will be okay, and Dawn makes a ton of phone calls. Every time the phone rings, they're convinced it's Kristy, but it's not. Eventually, the babysitters decide to spend the night together, because otherwise they'll just call each other every 5 minutes and drive their parents crazy. At the mansion, they find a room belonging to a woman named Dorothy. According to her diary, she loves Will Blackburn and wants to marry him, only her father doesn't approve. They plan to elope and run away to Maryland, but she's slightly worried that he's going to make her a housewife. According to old newspapers, Dorothy and Will tried to run away, but she fell in the river and drowned. Her father died of a broken heart 6 months later. That's tragic. They have trouble getting the kids to sleep, and the next morning, the rainstorm has ended. Kristy realizes the old caretaker is Will Blackburn. Will explains he never recovered from Dorothy's death 58 years ago. He bought the house and has spent his entire life keeping it the way it was when Dorothy was still alive. Also, there's no ghost. The mysterious flickering lights was him turning the lights on while he cleaned. Ghost stories are ridiculous. Will drops his creepy caretaker act and he makes friends with the kids. Everyone goes home, where they are reunited with their families. The end. Wait, we've still got 2 more chapters left? Oh. Huh. We skip ahead a week. The BSC is having a pizza party sleepover. When Marianne sees a picture of Dorothy, she recognizes her as the old woman who runs a sewing store in town. The girls go there, and Dorothy admits she faked her own death. Why? She liked being free, without any man to answer to, so she made up a fake identity and traveled the world. Dorothy, your father died from a broken heart. Will has spent 6 decades mourning you. What were you thinking? Why didn't you at least send a note that said, "I'm alive, don't come looking for me"? Your diary describes Will as the love of your life, and you ruined his life without a second thought because you wanted a European vacation. You are selfish and awful. Dorothy decides it'd be fun to see Will again. We don't get to see their reunion, but I imagine it was a huge disaster. The end. Post-book follow-up. Based on the title of the book, I thought this would be a haunted house mystery, like Stacy and the Mystery of Stoneybrook. Considering the scary setting, it would have worked if there were a few hauntings. But the closest we get is a fake scare when the caretaker pounds on the door to check in on them. So instead of a haunted house mystery, we get read an old person's diary mystery, like Mallory and the Ghost Cat or Mary Ann and the Secret in the Attic. So far, old diaries have made up a third of the mystery series. This is the first one where the diary author is still alive. While that definitely made for a better ending, the scene with Dorothy left a bad taste in my mouth. Maybe it's because I'm married, and I disagree with the argument that you should be better off dead than married. Marriage is awful, you should die instead. No, that's a bad argument, it's wrong, totally awful. Dorothy is an awful person. Dorothy and Will probably would have had a happy life together. He's so incredibly devoted to her. He spends 6 decades focusing on her. That is crazy amount of devotion. So I can't see him ruining her life and denying her anything she wants, like she thought he would. I have to question why she wanted to marry this guy at all if she was so convinced it would be a disaster. I'm fine with a strong feminist message about a 1930s woman who wants to run her own life. That's great, that's honorable. But could we not make her an awful person in the process? They easily could have made it so Dorothy thought Will was the one who died, or she thought he abandoned her when in reality he sent a message to her and it got lost. Something like that. Something that doesn't make Dorothy awful. Overall, this is a decent mystery, just not a good haunted house mystery. I was surprised to see Charlie step up and be great with the kids for once, instead of being Kristy's loser driver, and it was a change of pace to have the entire book cover one night with no subplots. I give Babysitter's Club Mystery number 9, Kristy and the Haunted Mansion, an 8 out of 10. -1 point for Dorothy being awful, and -1 point for the misleading title that promises hauntings.